Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving deep into a case that, well, it really defined the term media frenzy back in the early 2000s. The Chandra Levy case. We're talking Washington, D.C., May 2001. Chandra, she's 24, an intern with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, just days away from flying home to California, and then just vanishes.
And it wasn't just a missing person case. It instantly became this national obsession, really primarily because of one specific explosive piece of information that came out early on.
Yeah, and our deep dive today is critical because the sources really show how that single narrative thread, that sensational detail, completely derailed the actual criminal investigation.
That's exactly it. So our mission here is to cut through all that noise, get to the facts of the police investigation, or lack thereof in parts, the media's intense focus, this decade-long chase for a suspect, and then the frankly stunning way the conviction just collapsed. We want you to walk away understanding the real story, the systemic failures, not just the frenzy. Right. So the basics. Chandra Levy disappears around May 1st, 2001. Her parents report her missing about 5 days later, calling from California. Police go to her apartment in DuPont Circle. They find her phone, ID, credit cards, even bags partly packed. No obvious struggle, but definitely looked like she planned to leave soon.
And almost immediately, a real blunder by the investigators. One source points out a police sergeant tried looking at her laptop, but he wasn't trained in computer forensics, and apparently he messed up the internet search data, corrupted it before the technicians could even get a clean look.
Yeah, that's just a terrible start, an operational failure right out of the gate. It took them about a month to reconstruct that data, but once they did, it gave them the first real clue about her last known activities. She'd searched for things like Amtrak, Southwest Airlines, pretty normal travel stuff. But crucially, around 11:30 a.m. on May 1st, she searched the Washington Post entertainment guide for info on Rock Creek Park, and then pulled up a map of the park itself.
Okay, so that's a fairly strong indicator, right? Rock Creek Park, a potential location. But they barely had time to process this digital footprint, did they? Because almost at the same time, the whole focus just snaps away from D.C.
It really did. On May 7th, so just as police are starting, Levy's father and her aunt tell investigators about an affair, an extramarital affair with Congressman Gary Condit. He was a Democrat, represented her home district back in California. Condit initially denied it, which, only fanned the flames, though apparently he did admit it to investigators privately. Later, around July 7th.
And just like that, boom, the Condit connection.
Yeah.
Just consumed everything. The investigation, the media, it was relentless. We saw national news polls asking if people thought Condit was involved.
Yeah.
It was quite something.
And what's fascinating here, is how that media spotlight just completely overwhelmed the actual police work. It sort of inadvertently gave them cover to maybe not look as hard at other possibilities. Condit was never officially named a suspect, and much later FBI analysis of semen found on underwear in Levy's apartment confirmed a sexual relationship. But, crucially, it also definitively cleared him. No DNA link to the crime scene, to her body, nothing like that.
But the public perception, that was already set, wasn't it? The DNA results didn't seem to matter as much as the story. Condit did that TV interview with Connie Chung in August 2001.
Yeah.
It was widely seen as a disaster. He kept dodging direct questions about the affair, just made him look more suspicious to many.
Yeah, the damage was done, and the political fallout was immediate. That controversy was the main reason cited when he lost his primary race in March 2002. A former aide beat him. He just retired from Congress after that. So this narrative, the powerful man and the intern, it completely drowned out the actual investigative leads for a long time.
And that lack of focus, that tunnel vision, it was compounded by just an unbelievable physical search failure later on, because her remains were eventually found. Almost exactly a year after she disappeared. May 22, 2002, a guy walking his dog in Rock Creek Park stumbled upon her skeletal remains.
And the discovery itself highlighted the failure. The police commander, he'd ordered a search within 100 yards of every road and trail in the park. Standard procedure. But somewhere along the line, there was a, quote, miscommunication. The officers on the ground only searched within 100 yards of the roads. They missed the trails.
It's staggering, just ignoring the word trails. It meant her body lay undiscovered on this wooded slope 4 miles from her apartment for a whole year. Police Chief Ramsey later called it unacceptable. And yeah, it was.
And here's where that Condit focus looks even worse in hindsight. Because there was another potential suspect. Right there, already known to them, Ingmar Guandique, an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador. He'd already been arrested for attacking 2 other women. In Rock Creek Park, around the same time Chandra disappeared.
Right. The pattern was there. The location matched. And even back in September 2001, while the Condi story was peaking, a jailhouse informant told police Guandique had confessed to attacking Levy.
Now, that informant's initial story was a bit wild. It included this detail about Condi paying Guandique $25,000 for the hit, which investigators quickly dismissed as, well, unlikely, but the core confession. And Guandique's known attacks in that park, plus other details, like he didn't show up for work the day Levy vanished, his landlady saying he had scratches around that time. That should have put him front and center.
But it didn't. MPD investigators, they didn't even interview the other women Guandique attacked in the park. Not initially. Chief Ramsey actually told reporters basically, don't make too big a deal about this Guandique guy, called him just a person of interest. So the case just stalled, went cold for years really, because everyone's still talking about Condi.
It wasn't until 2006, under a new police chief, Kathy Lanier, that a dedicated cold case team was put on it. But the real catalyst, for shifting the focus properly onto Guandique, it came in 2008. The Washington Post ran this series of investigative pieces, and they really hammered the police department for dropping the ball on Guandique back in 2001.
So it took outside pressure, years later, from the media, the same force that maybe helped derail it initially, to get the police to seriously pursue the suspect they'd had all along. And that renewed attention finally led to an arrest warrant in 2009. Guandique was still in prison, serving time for those other Rock Creek Park assaults.
Yeah, and when they searched his cell out in California, they found something interesting, a small photo of Chandra Levy he'd cut out of a magazine and kept.
Okay, so 2010, the trial. Guandique is tried for Levy's murder. But the prosecution's case, it was thin, wasn't it? No DNA, no physical evidence tying him directly to her. It relied almost entirely on circumstantial stuff and testimony from a key witness, this fellow inmate, Armando Morales.
Right. Morales, who was also a gang member, claimed Guandique confessed to him in prison, said he killed Levy while trying to rob her, specifically stating he didn't rape her. The defense, naturally, they hit hard on that lack of physical evidence, called the prosecution's case fiction, floated theories maybe her body was dumped there later.
And Condi showed up too, right? Testified at the trial, still refused to answer directly about the affair, citing privacy. Kind of a weird, sad final chapter to his involvement.
And despite how shaky the case seemed, observers called the conviction a miracle. The jury bought it. Guandique was found guilty November 2010, 2 counts of first-degree murder, got 60 years. So on the surface, closure, case closed.
Not so fast, because then came the appeals. And this is where the whole thing just unravels spectacularly. In 2015, Guandique's lawyers argued for a new trial, their claim, that the star witness, Armando Morales, had lied on the stand, perjury.
Specifically, Morales had denied under oath that he was basically a serial jailhouse informant, someone who regularly offered testimony. And as the defense dug into this, a major prosecutorial failure emerged. Turns out the prosecutors hadn't handed over a crucial piece of evidence to the defense, the first page of a memo detailing their own contacts with Morales.
And this wasn't just some minor oversight, right? This was what they call exculpatory evidence, Brady material. That missing page apparently showed Morales had repeatedly approached law enforcement before, offering information in other cases. It completely undercut his credibility, suggesting he might have fabricated the confession story to get favors.
Exactly. It destroyed his reliability as a witness. Faced with this failure to disclose, prosecutors first agreed not to oppose a new trial. But the final blow came in 2016. Someone secretly recorded Morales admitting he had lied on the stand during Guandique's trial.
Wow, okay. So that was it then?
That was it. In July 2016, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced they wouldn't retry Guandique. They said they just couldn't proceed, having lost all confidence in their main witness.
So charges dropped, just like that?
Charges dropped. Guandique was released from prison, deported back to El Salvador in May 2017, and Chandra Levy's murder. Officially, it remains unsolved today. There were disciplinary proceedings later against the prosecutors involved over that failure to disclose the memo, but they denied any intentional wrongdoing, and the Office of Professional Responsibility ultimately found no violations. Still, the damage to the case was absolute.
It's just such a cascade of failures when you lay it all out. The botched initial search, then the intense, almost blinding focus on Condit that lasted for years. And finally, a conviction built on testimony that turned out to be perjured, compounded by evidence being withheld. It's layer upon layer.
And the fallout is significant. Condit lost his entire political career. He went into real estate, opened some Baskin-Robbins shops, apparently, though they later closed. A huge personal cost. But for the Levy family, the cost is immeasurable. Still no definitive justice for their daughter. Susan Levy, Chandra's mother, has become a really strong advocate for other cold cases, though.
And it's worth touching on that media aspect again. Some commentators did point out the disparity, this huge focus on a young, attractive white woman connected to power and scandal, compared to, say, the many unsolved homicides of black men in D.C. at the time. Was the intensity of the coverage skewed? It's a fair question.
It is. But there is a positive legacy, however small, that came from the family's efforts. Chandra's case, along with others like Kristen Modafferi's, helped push for legislative change. It led to things like Kristen's Law, which established the National Center for Missing Adults at the Department of Justice. So the family channeled their grief into creating better systems for others.
So what does this all mean when you look back? Well, I think this case really proves that sometimes the story, the narrative everyone wants to believe, can be the biggest barrier to finding the actual truth. You know, the affair narrative dominated for so long, it effectively blinded everyone, investigators, the public, and maybe allowed the real perpetrator, who police already knew was attacking women in that park, to just remain invisible in plain sight for years. So it makes you wonder, is it possible the intense pressure, the celebrity status of this murder, is actually what forced that weak conviction through? Did the need for an answer, for closure, lead prosecutors to rely on Morales, causing the whole thing to collapse later? It raises a really important question for all of us, I think. How often does that urgent desire for public closure end up trumping the slow, careful, patient pursuit of real definitive justice?